Chris Doherty is a sports writer for the Martinsville Bulletin. There's a paper for you. I'm Marky Billson, Tri-City Sports Now. Hey, Martinsville, they're not in the Appalachian League, but he's covering the Danville Braves, who are in first place in the Western Division, in large part due to breakout seasons, first for left-handed pitcher Mitch Stallings, who we've talked about before on this show. 2 weeks ago as the Player of the Week in the Appalachian League, and a Atlanta native pitching in the Braves organization, which is fun. Also, Bryce Ball, who was a draft choice this year out of Dallas Baptist, which is normally a perennial top 25 college baseball program. He's lighting up, and last I checked was on he's right now, I think, leading the Appalachian League in all the Triple Crown categories. So this is why the Danville Braves are in first place. But Doherty writes about their philosophy, and I think if you're a Braves fan, you've got to be very happy about this, because the Danville Braves, or at least their hitting coach, Barabo Garbe, is promoting the old school, the fundamental approach, not necessarily launch angles and trying to go for the fences with two strikes. Doherty wrote about this. I urge everyone, type it into Google. Danville Braves going old school with hitting philosophy. And so Doherty joins us here now. I guess I know you cover the Braves, you just told me, not so much as a beat writer, but you do cover them from time to time. And so, first of all, the impetus for this story. How did you discover that, yes, the Braves are not necessarily in Danville teaching the modern approach to hitting, but rather the old school fundamental approach, what with a player who used to play for Sparky Anderson, now teaching them as a coach?
Well, I was curious with the home run derby coming up, and everyone talking in Major League Baseball about the launch angle and the home run, all or nothing approach. I was curious how teams were approaching that style of hitting at the lowest level of their system, and I was just open-minded. I didn't know what I was going to get out of Garbe or out of the players, and I was pleasantly surprised and pleased that they are old-school approach takers, and I thought that was really interesting and entertaining from a baseball perspective to know that the old two-strike approach, hit the other way, hit a gap shot, move the runner over, strikeouts aren't easy to take and fine to take, and that was kind of I was just kind of curious and hopeful as a baseball fan that was still alive, and Danville, that sure is.
We're talking to Chris Doherty, sports writer, Martinsville Bulletin. I almost said he was a sports writer for the Martinsville Phillies. I'm glad I didn't. Anyway, Danville Braves going old school with hitting philosophy came out a couple of days ago, right before the All-Star game. One of the things that I was curious about, did you maybe talk and see if this was sort of an organizational trend? Because I've talked on this show, especially with Josh Brown of Nakahoma Nation, who does a Braves podcast, and he joins me at 1:30 on Fridays. And we talk a little bit about the differences between, say, the Braves organization and the Phillies organization. And the Phillies seem to be really in on analytics. I mean, they like that ball player that sort of puts up the, shall I say, Adam Dunn type stats, where it seems like it's a strikeout or a home run. You think about the Braves, they don't really have ball players like that. So could the more, hey, it is important to get the ball in play, that sort of thing, could that be more of an organizational philosophy rather than just the teachings of the Danville coaching staff?
It does seem in Atlanta, you're right, that they are more of a put the ball in play type of squad. But no, I didn't really dig too deep into the whole organizational philosophy from top. I just kind of focused on what they were doing in Danville. And in Danville, they don't worry about what the organization wants by the time they get to Atlanta. And in Danville, it is really about learning how to hit the baseball and be a professional baseball hitter. And so I don't know for sure if from top to bottom they want to be that. But it does seem like as baseball fans, when you watch the Braves on a nightly basis, they don't want to strike out. They want to put the ball in play. They want to make things happen. And they also want to see the ball go out of the ballpark from all parts of their lineup. So I would agree with you that it probably is an organizational theme, but I don't know that for sure.
Well, Now, one thing that I noticed, you interviewed Willie Carter, who was Atlanta's 34th round draft choice, who's hitting 308, by the way, for the Danville Braves, who will be hosting Greenville for local fans for a 3-game series beginning tonight. And then next weekend, they'll come in and play at Johnson City, and then in the week at Greenville at Pioneer Park against the Reds. So, yeah, the two teams of the Tri-Cities, the Braves and the Reds, their minor league systems fighting against each other both today and in about a week. Anyway, what I wanted to, or 2 weeks rather, excuse me, I believe. Sorry, yes. But Willie Carter speaks, he says, hey, I'm not a big strikeout guy. I'd rather put the ball in play with 2 strikes. And instead of launch angle, the feeling is exit velocity. Hit the ball as square as you can and bring it back even harder than it's brought to you. Talk about that. Was that something that Barabo Garbe was teaching his hitters?
He didn't go to the exit velocity directly, but his thing was pitch selection. Finding the fastball in the zone to strike and hit with damage. Really, that was it. And then when I talked to the players about it, Willie Carter and Bryce Ball, their exit velocity talk kind of stems from the idea of finding the pitch to hit. And even if it's an out, if they hit the ball hard, they square it up, they know they're seeing the ball the way they need to be seeing it. And that was kind of the way they look at it. And then obviously with the 2-strike approach, they're not even worried about exit velo at that point. They're just trying to get the ball in play. And with Willie's case, he knows he's got some speed out there, so if he can put some pressure on an infielder, he'd rather do that than just go down with a whimper, swinging at a breaking ball in the dirt.
We're talking to Chris Doherty. He is a sports writer for the Martinsville Bulletin, and he's telling a little bit, just to reiterate, the Danville Braves, maybe even the Braves' entire organization, we're speculating on that, teaching more of an old school hitting philosophy than the new launch angle, home run or nothing philosophy that so many analytics types seem to prefer. As I said, trying to make every player into an Adam Dunn or a Gorman Thomas from the old days, somebody like that. Anyway, Chris Doherty, you do write in Martinsville, and so I want to ask, how come Martinsville doesn't have an Appalachian League team anymore?
Well, I think part of it is popularity. The Hooker Field attendance is just not the way it was back in the day when the Phillies were in town. And I mean, I'm a big baseball guy, so every night they have the Coastal Plain League team, the Mustangs, and I like to go watch that game as well. Those are college kids, just trying to get another summer, trying to get their one big break. But unfortunately, the popularity of baseball in Martinsville kind of diminished over the last 10 years or so, especially recently. We just had Nathan Perry get drafted in the 5th round by the Astros last season. He played high school ball at Bassett High School down here. Just unfortunately, baseball just isn't the hotbed sport that it once was in Martinsville, which is it's sad to see. And you hope one day that they can figure something out in the city and bring a more professional team into Martinsville, because there is always a market for professional baseball, in my opinion. I think that might just be my biased love for the game, but I always feel like if you can bring professional baseball anywhere, then if you do it right, you can get people to watch.
Well, let me just throw this to you. I was involved in an organization, the BFFF, that was designed to keep hope alive that ETSU football would return. And eventually, after 12 years, yes, it did happen. And although, yes, I know that the powers that be at the university had to pull the trigger on it, certainly the awareness that the BFFF produced over the 12 years had to help. I mentioned this. Is there any organization like a Bring Back Baseball to Martinsville, Chris Doherty? Because, I mean, I just look at a story like the Bristol Pirates are closing down their stands. The ballpark is falling apart. And I do remember when Danville had 2 teams, the 97s were there temporarily for a year. But, I mean, could, say, Martinsville try to lure the Pirates away or something like that in the future? Is there an organization trying to bring back baseball to Martinsville?
I don't think there is. I think the biggest thing that would hold anything like that back in Martinsville is the fact that Hooker Field needs renovations. There's no covered seating at Hooker Field.
There's never any covered seating at Arlington Stadium, where the Rangers moved to from Washington back in the day, but yeah. And trust me, Texas Heat, you needed covered seating, but go ahead, yes.
Yeah, I mean, mean, in this league, in this area, I mean, with the heat that they're playing in the summertime, these leagues want covered seating.
Sure.
Kind of the big deal. I remember, I think it was Holly Springs put a boatload of money into their stadium, and the league said if you put covered seating there, we'll give you the All-Star game, and they did. They put covered seating there, and they got the All-Star League game for the Coastal Plain League. Danville's got covered seating, and they do well. Their numbers for sales do well under that covered seating. I feel like if Martinsville was able to bring back if they were able to renovate Hooker Field, if somebody in the county rather than in the city of Martinsville wanted to build something with covered seating, that's where it begins to try to get a team from the Appalachian League or even in the Coastal Plain League, because we just don't know the future of the Mustangs. I think that's where step one to getting a team like that in Martinsville would be getting a stadium with covered seating.
It's intriguing right there. You have no way of knowing this, of course, Chris Doherty, but I used to be a broadcaster for a baseball team in Harlingen, Texas, and Harlingen Field, which for all intents and purposes is a decent field, and I would put it up against several in the Appalachian League, but there was no covered seating. And yeah, we did, being in Texas, compare it to old Arlington Stadium, or Turnpike Stadium as it was originally called, that yes, lured the Senators to Arlington, Texas back in 1972. We did make the comparison. The Rangers, by the way, when they played at Arlington Stadium, they were playing Sunday night games a lot back before that was in vogue, just to, keep their fans cool, that sort of thing. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, the old what was acceptable maybe in the major leagues in 1972, maybe not in the Appalachian League in 2020. So think about that for a second here. Chris Doherty, let me ask you about the Braves. They are in first place. It looks like Bryce Ball is a real prospect. And I've also been talking a lot about Mitch Stallings, who maybe is a little long in the tooth at 24 years old, but he's just, leading the league in innings pitched, second lowest ERA. Whip is just almost exactly at 1, and he's a left-handed pitcher, which is a way you can go. They say catcher's the fastest way to the major leagues. No, lefty pitcher. It can happen if you're a lefty pitcher. Tell us a little bit about, is Stallings and Ball, do you think they're legitimate major league prospects?
I think we'll start with Stallings. I absolutely believe if he keeps working on it and he goes through the progression of this organization, he can absolutely be there. He's got the skill set. You said he's a little older at 24, but he is a 4-year college player.
Duke, yeah.
Big game experience. I think that helps him. I talked to him. If you look on the website, I did a story on him. I think just a week before I did or a couple of days before, maybe the hitting philosophy story. And he talked about how he grew up a Braves fan. He idolized Tom Slavin. He throws the changeup as his primary pitch. He loves that pitch. He's kind of learned how to become his own pitcher outside of the Tom Slavin-esque stuff that he does. I absolutely believe Mitch Stallings could be a pro baseball player at the big league level. Bryce Ball, as a hitter, he's got the technique, he's got the skill set, he's got the size. You just never know with baseball hitters, really. You always hope that they keep it going as they take the next step. But he's obviously off to as good a start as you can hope for, and he's another one of those guys that took the longer route. He went the JUCO route for 2 years, thought he'd go get drafted out of JUCO. He tried the launch angle stuff his sophomore year of college, and he took a real dip, and then loved the Dallas Baptist, loved the still, and that's where he really learned how to be a hitter again. So I believe if he keeps following the footsteps that he's been taking the last year and a half, 2 years, we could see Bryce Ball at the big league level in a few years.
I'm loving this information you're giving me, Chris Doherty of the Martinsville Bulletin. I'm loving what they're doing. By the way, what was the change for Stallings? Because he's so dominant this year, yet previously, you look at his stats before, that really wasn't all that good. What's the difference between now and then?
I think it's confidence. I really do. I think it's becoming comfortable in his role, refiguring out how to be a pitcher again. Just even though obviously it's still pitching is pitching, but from college to pros and from the Gulf Coast League to the Danville Braves, and being a reliever to being a starter, pitching 1 or 2 innings here and there to being a long relief guy like he's been this year. I think it's confidence. He's believing that he's believing in his stuff. He's figured out grips that work for him. He's relying on this changeup when he can. I really think it comes down to confidence. And for kids in this league, that's as important as any skill
the Danville Braves are hosting the Greenville Reds today, and then not this week but the next weekend they will come to Johnson City, and then they will come to Greenville in 2 weeks, and so you will be able to see the Bryce Balls and the Mitch Stallings and the Willie Carters at that time, and maybe also a difference in organizational philosophy possibly between the Braves and maybe some of their other teams. By the way, I want to ask, the Danville Braves I know are like the Elizabethan Twins, and the Twins, of course, are the big historic winners of the last 30 years in the Appalachian League, and really the reason why is because they weight their team differently. Basically, the Elizabethan Twins are a New York Penn League team playing in the Appalachian League, unlike, let's say, the Greenville Reds, where players are promoted to the Pioneer League, which is also a rookie-level league. Other organizations, let's say the Kingsport Mets, you're promoted to Brooklyn in the New York Penn League, which is short-season A-ball, that sort of thing. Braves, though, you go from, correct me if I'm wrong, but you go to the Appalachian League to, I think it's the Sally League, but it's full season A. There is no other short season league that you're promoted to. How long has that been the Braves organizational system? Off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure, and I could have sworn, I'm just sort of curious here. How long has the Braves slotted their Appalachian League team similarly to the Twins?
I'm not exactly sure, but I do know you're right that they do go straight from the Danville Braves and the Appalachian League to full season A in Rome. I'm trying to see here if I can figure out real quick.
I mean, you could look it up on Baseball Reference. I know they've got the history of the minor league organizations and such. And
the last time the Braves had a short season A team between Danville and full season A was 2001.
Okay.
They had the Jamestown Jammers right after Danville before they went to Macon. So that was back when Macon still had a minor league team. But then the Rome Braves became the full season A in 2003, and that's where they've gone from Danville ever since. It's been a long time that they've gone straight from Appalachian League to full season A ball in Rome.
Josh Brown used to cover the Rome Braves. That's why we talk to him. He's got that sort of knowledge of the young Braves players from the Nakahoma Nation podcaster. Anyway, this is Chris Doherty, and I urge you to check this out. Danville Braves Old School Philosophy. Folks, I mean, it is a simple game. You catch the ball, you throw the ball, you hit the ball. Hey, there was a guy in the Braves system, at least fictitiously, in Durham, who once came up with that. Turns out that is the Braves philosophy in 2019 for real. Chris Doherty, thanks for giving us the lowdown and the skinny on what's going on the other side of the Appalachian League, and we'll be back after this.